Welcome back, everybody, to the School Leadership Show. This is Mike Dowdy. Now, today I have not only a very special guest with me, but also a special set of circumstances. So I'm interviewing Marie Wiles, who is a recently retired superintendent, and we're doing it in person. Marie is sitting at the table with me in my apartment. Hi, Marie.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I am fantastic. So I've been wanting to sit down and talk to you like this since I met you. And I think we've known each other, probably since I got to BOCES, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it was like 6 or 7 years ago. So it's been a while. So can you tell folks a little bit about your background and kind of what you're doing now besides recovering from a recent trip to Ireland?
Happy to do that. So I began my educational career as an English teacher and loved every single moment of it. I worked with seventh graders, ninth graders, and seniors. So we had a wide range of student ages, all in a single day. That was all at once.
Wild.
And advised the yearbook, advised the senior class. So I got a full complement of what it meant to be.
Now, how long did you teach?
7 years.
7 years. So you had, and I always appreciate this about folks, like, so you legit have instructional jobs. I feel like I taught for like 4.5 years, and that was always a source of angst for me. Like, did I teach long enough to really know what I was doing? And the short answer is no, but go ahead. So teach for 7 years.
Taught for 7 years, and my 7th year was in the early 90s, which was one of the big financial downturns for the economy. And my school district at the time made its reductions in the area of professional development. So I sought out my own by starting part-time the doctoral program and teaching curriculum at Syracuse University. So for my last year of teaching, I was doing part-time school, driving out to Syracuse for the 4 to 7 o'clock class.
And we're talking now for folks who aren't familiar with upstate geography. We're sitting in Albany right now, and it's a solid 2 hours to Syracuse.
Well, I was an hour. I was
you were
in the Utica
closer.
area.
Oh, you were
time.
closer, right?
I taught in New York Mills, and I lived in the Utica area. So it was an hour. So it was eminently doable. And I loved that work. So I did my course. Well, so I was there part-time. And at the end of my first year, my professor said, Marie, you could do this full-time if you'd like. And I'm like, well, who's going to support me? And the answer was the university did, sort of. So I started full-time the following fall, and my assistantship was supervising students in the inclusive elementary program.
Now, did you have a background in special ed?
Nope.
Ooh.
I was a high school English teacher.
Okay.
So it was a great thing for me because it helped me expand my 7-12 experience to K-12. Because I was in all of those elementary schools. And the program was a dual certification for those students. They came out with a special ed degree and an elementary ed degree. So I had to become quite proficient in both, like on the spot.
And for the people who don't work in New York State, that means the Part 200 regulations.
That's right. And all of their placements were in the Syracuse City School District or the West Genesee School District. So I spent a lot of time in urban settings and suburban settings.
And your teaching experience was rural or suburban?
I would call it suburban. We were one community over from the city of Utica.
Okay.
Kind of like the way Guilderland is one community over from Albany. So
Got
some
it.
things come full circle. So I was at SU for 2 years. And was an overachiever then, as I have been my entire life, and was close to finishing, starting my dissertation, which ironically was in urban education.
Really?
Yes, pre-service teacher commitment to
Wow.
urban education.
Is that because that's the work you were doing at the time?
Very much so.
Okay.
But I went to Temple University in Philadelphia as an undergrad and felt very much in tune to the city experience. So there were a lot of things that kind of crossed over there. So
How did you grow up? Rural, suburban?
I would call it rural.
Yeah. Okay.
I would call it rural. And so I decided I had taken a leave of absence for 2 years from my well, actually for 1 year. And I went back to the district and asked if I could have a second year, and they said no. So I resigned and started working on my dissertation. And I was about halfway through when a friend of mine who worked at Madison and Ida BOCES said, there's a position open here for a curriculum development specialist, and you would be perfect for it. And so I applied and I got the job, and the district superintendent at the time, Dr. Ed Schaefer, was so happy that I was close to finishing a PhD that he said, you can have 2 weeks paid time to get that thing done, written.
Wow.
But you need to do it. Now I was mostly done.
Yeah.
So it's like that final push.
I miss the good old days.
Those were good old days. So I literally sat in my home office for 12, 14 hours a day for those 2 weeks. And I finished that darn thing. And I defended, and all was good in the world. I only stayed in Madison and Ida BOCES for about a year, 14 months, because I ended up going to ONC BOCES down in the Catskills as the director of curriculum and instruction.
And now, see, so some people might not know what BOCES is. So that's New York's equivalent of educational service agencies.
Right.
So different states call them different things. Most of them have some version, but we call ours BOCES.
Yes. Board of Cooperative Educational Services.
Service is our last name.
And cooperative
is our middle name.
Yes. So I was at ONC BOCES for 13 years, and I did 3 jobs there. I was the director of curriculum and instruction. This was the late 90s now. So standards and assessments, 4th and 8th grade testing.
We had just flipped like 95,
Yes.
96 to that new set of standards.
Yes. So I spent all of my time helping 19 school districts, none of whom had any curriculum leadership in their buildings, learn the standards, write their curriculum, get ready for the tests. And so I loved that work. It was great. So I was the director of curriculum and instruction, and then I got promoted to assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. And then our BOCES district superintendent took a job in a school district. And the interim at the time, wonderful man by the name of Alan Cole said, Marie, you should apply.
It's a big from the past.
Yeah. And I said, but I am nowhere qualified to do this job. He said, I think you are. So I applied. And I got the job, and I was a BOCES district superintendent for 7 of those 13 years at ONC BOCES. I learned so much during that time and was once again an overachiever. I was the chair of the BOCES district superintendents group for 2 years while pregnant with my child.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what. Well, okay. Wow. Okay. I have always said that the only reason I was able to finish my dissertation was because I had a wife. So I don't know how you do that as the wife and mother. Wow.
Well, the dissertation came before wife and mother.
Okay, fair. So 7 years is DS. All right. And that, I don't know. I think that's one of the coolest jobs in K-12 education, because when you are in charge of an educational service agency, you get to learn about all the districts and so many different services and laws. And so 7 years there, and then we get the 7-year itch. Is that what happened?
No.
Okay.
I met my husband on a blind date around.
Stop. We got to do that too.
Well,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. We'll go down that road in a second.
like
Go ahead.
around year 6 there. We had a mutual friend who I thought I was meeting to give career counseling to. And she was, in fact, setting me up with probably the only eligible bachelor in Otsego County at the time.
Yes.
So we met in January, in the 30th of 2005, and we were married the following December, 11 months later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Well, I mean,
We were 40.
Well, that's right. TikTok, right? Got to get moving.
TikTok.
Okay.
So just to put a fine point on his priorities, we got married in the plaque gallery of the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yes. Okay. I remember from the COVID days, the baseball memorabilia in your background.
In my basement.
Yeah.
Yes. It still exists there. So after a couple tries, we were blessed with having our son Ben. And that was the reason why I rethought the district superintendency,
Yeah.
because I was out every single night in a part of the state where road pavement was optional.
Oh,
And I had a
yeah.
couple really scary nights getting home from districts where I was doing superintendent searches, and just had this mom moment that these two roles do not really work well together.
Right.
So the Clinton Central School District, which is where I grew up,
Okay.
opened. I went to St. Mary's in Clinton. I was a Catholic school girl.
Wow. Hamilton College. right?
Hamilton College.
Okay.
And my mom, who's since passed, lived in the next community. And so I applied for and got that job, and we moved to Clinton, which turned out to be not my best career move.
Why do you think so?
I learned a really interesting thing about the timing of appointments to a position in board elections. So
Say more about that.
the board who appointed me in April was not the board I came to work for in July, because in May, 3 of the 7 positions turned over, and the 3 new board members had zero respect for their previous colleagues and any decision they made, including who they hired as a superintendent. I feel like I could have walked on water and it wouldn't have been good enough. So after a couple of years, I was putting my feelers out, but I had former colleagues from ONC BOCES who actually lived in Guilderland. And when Guilderland opened, quite a few of them reached out to me and said, this would be a good place for you. So I applied, and I was there for almost 15 years. So I think
number of kids, size of Clinton?
Clinton at the time was about 1,300.
1,300 K-12, maybe a free and reduced lunch rate at the time.
Oh,
It's 50, 60,
no.
70%.
It was a very have and have not community.
Got it.
But mostly haves.
Mostly, okay.
So I would say it was in the 20s. I
Okay.
can't remember now.
Right. So a decently resourced district.
Yes.
It's kind of small. Then you go to Guilderland.
Yes.
All right. So different district.
Yeah.
Substantially. So much bigger.
Yeah.
Yep. So talk a little bit about going from that smaller district to the larger one. Was that a hard move?
Yes and no. It was actually harder going from a BOCES role to a school district role because of I'll just say the intensity of the relationships. I mean,
Right.
One thing about a BOCES district superintendent, you have a lot of political roles, but they're at 30,000 and up.
Yeah.
Not so much the parents and the local politics. Clinton, there was a lot of local politics because the school district, despite being well-resourced, was in terrible financial condition.
Oh. Okay.
They had made some unfortunate decisions around capital projects that ran into, technical issues where the costs were overrun, and it just was pretty ugly. So that was kind of a big eye-opening thing. And the board was super involved, like micromanaging involved, which was not my experience in the BOCES at all. So that was a bigger transition than actually going from a 1,400 school district to a 5,000 school district, because the work is still largely the same.
Mhm.
You're still spending a lot of time working with your Board of Education. It was really scaling up to build the team. You have a lot more people through whom you need to get things done. And that's, I think, for people who are doers, like I just want to get everything done. It's a different dynamic when you have a leadership team of close to 30 people who do on your behalf. And how do you keep all of those people with the same mission and vision in mind and rowing in the same direction and acting as a team that collaborates rather than competes, which really very much happens in many of our suburban school districts. And I would have none of that. It's like I used to say it all the time and get laughed at. we are a school district, not a district of schools, and we work together.
Ooh, I like that.
I stole it from somebody, I'm sure.
That's great.
So learning how to harness the energy and the talents of I had great people on the team. I mean, Jim Butterworth, another name for the past, used to say, Marie, you've got the A team over there. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Now, how do you harness that and build a team to move a district forward and create a climate and culture where people want to come to work, where families want to be, where students are happy and learning? It just shifts the work a little bit.
Now we're all a product of our experiences, and you kind of talked about that one career move. But if you look back over, how many years were you in K-12 total?
In all my roles?
Yeah.
36-ish.
Okay. So I just started year 30. So we've all got lots of different experiences. But if you had to point to a couple that were just really sort of life-changing in terms of how you viewed the profession, how you viewed your role in it, how you viewed yourself as a leader, what would one or two of those be?
One of them actually happened when I was student teaching at CODA. I think it was junior high at the time. We're talking in the late 80s. And my cooperating teacher, after I taught a lesson, pointed out to me that I completely ignored a couple of the kids in the class who were not, the A students always raising their hand. And I had no idea that I missed. And they were a couple boys. I just missed those boys. And I never forgot it. And it's one of the reasons why all these years later, I don't talk about, we're going to be here for all kids. I talk about each and every. So no one, well, it happens, but we try so hard not to let any child, our top performer, our most struggling performer, and everybody in between doesn't get lost in the shuffle of trying to get through the lesson, which was, of course, what I was trying to do as a brand new person. It's like, I've got this lesson plan. I've got to get through it. When the lesson plan isn't what's on the paper, it's the interaction that you have with each and every one of those children.
Well, and right. I remember those first couple years teaching too, so focused on what I was doing that, I don't know, maybe there were kids in the room. Really like that, that laser focused. That's fascinating. I love looking at it that way, each and every versus all.
And honestly, that has informed everything, consciously and maybe a bit unconsciously sometimes. The other thing that's been a big influence in my life is that my own family, I have two disabled brothers who are both older than me. One had his early experience in the old-fashioned state institution.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And the next younger one is just 5 years older than me. He had a more, what we would call typical for this day and age, where he went to the public school, he went to a BOCES classroom. But my parents are gone now, so I'm their guardian. I'm the close person here. Yeah. And I have really learned how the difference it makes when children have the opportunity to be with their non-disabled peers and to have friends across the spectrum of abilities and experiences. And I mean, that's changed who I am as a person, profoundly. Although I fought it for years. Not to say I was always so, okay about it. I struggled with it for years, but
that's a really hard perspective for people to take unless they're in the middle of it. Unless you're feeling it and dealing with it and looking at a system through the eyes of one of its consumers who is not the most advantaged among us, I agree with you, totally life-changing. Let's talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. The whole idea of the less you know about something, the more you think you know, or as I like to call it, my 20s. So, so what is something that at the beginning of your career as a leader that you thought, I got this piece. This other stuff I got to work on a little bit, but this thing totally got. And then turns out you didn't. Was there anything that you can think of where you were like, yeah, I got this, and you got into it, like, whoa, hang on.
Well, a part of my job in my first I was a curriculum leader, which is, I think, different than a system leader. A curriculum leader is in a helping role.
Yep.
When you show up, people are happy that you're there because you're going to help them figure out how to do stuff to make their lives
Then
better.
they might get lunch out of it.
And they probably, in those days, there was lunch. As opposed to when I got into more of a superintendent, supervisory role where people were less happy to see you because you're also the person who has to make tough decisions about resources and HR and all that kind of thing. So I felt like, boy, I really knew the curriculum and instructional side of the house. And I probably did better than my counterparts around the DS table. I'll tell you a quick story that you'll appreciate, maybe. There used to be, I don't think it exists anymore, this unspoken rule, like when you were a new DS, you didn't get to talk for 2 years.
I've heard of that rule.
It existed. There was a pecking order on where you sat, and there was an expectation of who got to speak. So at my very first meeting, I was 38 years old, and I knew nothing about anything else but curriculum instruction, honestly. So to your question, there was an ocean of things. I was just like, oh my God, I'm so far over my head. And the discussion was going on, and it came, it was the time of standards and assessments, and all of that was new-ish. And Rick Mills was the commissioner at the time. And it was my first meeting, and we were on this topic. I don't even remember what it was now in particular, but he said, well, I want to ask what Dr. Warshall, my name at the time, thinks about this. And he said, and I know there's a rule about speaking, but I want to hear from her. And,
I'm the commissioner.
And, I had if there were an AED handy, I could have used it. So I am sure I said something. I don't know if I blathered like an idiot or what. But, after the fact, the people who sat at that high end of the table, who were the power brokers, did sign it. Okay, you can be one of us.
Interesting. How much? So we're talking when you started in that DS role. What year would that have been? Mid 2000s.
2001.
2000.
I got the job right after 9/11.
Wow. I was in my first principalship for 9/11. So that's wild. So, we work in a profession where the workforce is, I can't remember, it's something like 85% women. But then when we get to highest levels of leadership, I look around the room at the state superintendent's conference, and there's more women than there used to be, but it's nowhere near parity. What was that like? Did you feel it? Because I trying to empathize, but as a white man, I didn't bump into any of that.
The short answer is yes, I most certainly felt it. I think there were only 3 other women at the time. Barbara Nagler was one.
Wow. Was it Bev?
Bev Oderkirk was another, and Linda Gush and me. And I wasn't even a puppy. I was just so outside of my element. And the only reason I was successful, I think, was because I had Alan Pohl, who was a great, great mentor. And I had a board of education at the BOCES who they kind of like loved me.
BOCES boards are delightful for the most part.
They worried about me. They would want to make sure I was eating right and getting enough rest. And, I've never had a board subsequent to that who was so worried that I wasn't taking care of myself. And, And Commissioner Mills was the same way. He was very fatherly to me.
That's so fascinating.
It was so
Interesting.
touching.
Well, I mean, it goes to show, right? Even when you were describing your trajectory of, where you kind of have gotten to the place you are, it was always because it was part of your network. It was somebody you knew, and the network was taking care of you. And I worry about that moving forward. Maybe education is a little different because we're always in person, but I worry about that kind of thing for people, just starting out their career. Like, how do you build a network when everybody's so not into interacting?
Right.
And I worry about that. So, okay, I promise we'll end on a happy note, but that's not the time yet. So talk about what's keeping you up at night. When you think about our system and you get to have the clear-eyed omnipresence of someone who's no longer in it, what keeps you up? What are you worried about, short and long term?
Well, plenty. I hate to say it. I feel like we are on the cusp of another really difficult financial
That's
path.
what we keep hearing. Yep.
And, I've weathered a couple of these and there's just nothing good about them. There are jaded people among our ranks who might say, never waste a good crisis. Maybe you can squeeze something a little bit good out of a crisis, but generally not a crisis. It's called a crisis.
Crisis for a reason.
Yeah. So I do worry that a lot of the things that have been put in place in our systems to support students around their mental health in particular, but also students who are struggling coming out of COVID, all of those parts of the school system that have become kind of essential for overall well-being. I worry that when money goes away and things have to be backfilled, that we're going to lose some of that. And it will be really hard. And there are no white horses that ride in with the cavalry to solve these things. So I do worry about that. I hope I'm 100% wrong, but the writing on the wall is kind of there, just given the cuts that we've seen kind of from the top down. So that keeps me up at night. That might be the biggest one because, resources really do matter. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hear you can't solve problems with money by throwing money at it. Well, no one said anything about throwing money at it. Mm-hmm. It's like, let's be really strategic at what kids need and how we can meet those needs. And, I think that's what a lot of places have been doing post-COVID, even before COVID, like taking a hard look at who are these children? What do they need? And can we support them in ways?
And you might not be able to solve a problem by throwing money at it, but for the really big problems, they're hard to solve without money.
Right.
So I think that, yeah. So now let's shift it. What gives you hope?
So I have a lot of faith in youth. I really do. And I will channel a little bit from my speech to the graduating class of 2025, which was such an emotional roller coaster for me.
Imagine. Oh.
I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to retire the same year my son graduated. I mean,
well, my thing is get it all over at once.
I know there's some poetic arc here. I really struggled to hold it all together. But, I still have faith in the goodness of human nature. And so I finished my speech really reflecting on the hope that I witnessed firsthand manifested in our own students. Yeah. Students who do community service, students who are part of Best Buddies, students who participate in unified sports, students going into the military,
Mm-hmm.
students who want to be board members. I mean, all of the ways that our young people can show that they see a brighter future, like drags along all of us old people. And I do feel hopeful that, we're going to have some bumps in the road, but there have always been bumps in the road. And to say any time was some rosy perfection is just,
It just isn't. The good old days weren't that good.
No, they weren't.
They weren't terrible, but I totally hear what you're saying, and I have to tell you that one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, and obviously anybody who has listened to this conversation now knows, you're among, I can count on one hand the number of superintendents I would put in the category of you, and I mean that wholeheartedly. From the moment I met you and worked with you, you're circumspect and caring and tough as nails too. I mean, I think about that cybersecurity thing we did, right? I mean, Marie's district got hit. It was all over the newspaper. It was a mess. And your sense of humor, your perspective, your toughness, hey, the only way through it is through it.
Yeah.
Like you have had a tremendous impact on the way I view school leadership and how we approach our system. So for that, I'm eternally thankful. And I want to make sure that people know this about you. You wrote a book.
I did.
Talk to me about because you know how I feel about literature. Yeah, I wasn't even an English major. Marie and we differ on who's the most influential poet of the 20th century, but that's for a different podcast. So talk about your book.
So, I never planned to write a book. It was, and now in retrospect, I'm like, how did I do this and go to work and whatever. But it all came from, happenstance and like a bit of advice I would give to aspiring leaders is never say no to an opportunity, even if you don't have time to do it.
Yep.
Just like say yes and then make it happen. But it just started when NISCUS asked me, just as they asked you, to do one of those Ignite sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say no, even though I'm like, oh my God.
That, by the way, for folks who don't know what that is, talk about how unnerving it is.
Well, it's the hardest thing. I can do public. I don't have a problem with public speaking. I've had enough practice over my life. I don't fear it like I fear snakes or anything like that. But this thing is exactly 10 minutes. It's a slide deck that advances every 30 seconds with someone else's hand on the clicker. And so you can't just wax poetic too long on one slide or the whole thing falls apart. So I never worked so hard on anything in my life. So, and my dog could probably give the speech because I would do it again and again when everyone else was there. And she would just sit there and look at me like, here she goes again with Shakespeare. So Teresa asked me to do it. I said yes. And they said my topic was social emotional wellness. And I'm like, I don't know anything about social emotional wellness. So I just got a harebrained idea to go back to like my roots, which was English teacher. And I said, well, what can I do with Shakespeare? And I started thinking,
how'd you pick it to Shakespeare? It's just your favorite? One of your favorites?
Well, I taught a ton of it in high school. Okay. We did Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet and Lear and Merchant of Venice. And, those were memorable lessons because I remember kids like, oh my gosh, why are we doing this? I don't understand a single word. But back then they would go, what a cool story.
Yeah.
No other things that we read had that swing.
Right.
So I said, well, what the heck? Let me think about Shakespeare. And so I said, well, oh my gosh, Macbeth. He is like the what not to do of social emotional wellness. So I just sort of played off of that. And I remember emailing Teresa, who was the conference coordinator. And I said, I've got this crazy idea. What do you think? She goes, oh my gosh, I love it. So I did the talk. Then AASA asked me to write a 600-word article for their magazine, which I did. And the day after it was published, Roman and Littlefield emailed me and said, one of the people who worked there said, I'd like to help you turn this into a book. And I didn't read who this was from. And I thought to myself, yeah, I write a book and I write you a check for 10 grand and I get a book.
Yep.
So I reached out to Jay Goldman at AASA because he was the one who asked me to write the 600-word article. And he goes, oh my gosh, no, Marie, this is the vice president of blah, blah, blah. Call him.
It's real deal.
So I called him, and this was early in June. And he goes, well, I just need you to send me a proposal. And I said, it's early in June. I can't do a thing for you until July.
Mm-hmm.
So after graduation and after the organizational meeting, I spent a Sunday afternoon like making stuff up. I didn't really know what I was going to do.
Right.
Hit send on the proposal like at 6:00 on a Sunday night and had a contract in my inbox Monday morning.
Get out of
Yes.
town.
It's like, and you have 6 months to write this. And I'm like, this is just not going to happen. So 6 months took me 1 year, 1 day short of 1 year to write it. And, it really was about.
And the name of the book, Lessons from the Bard, What Shakespeare Can Teach Us About School District Leadership.
Yep. So I picked 5 plays that I thought were accessible to people, whether they were, recently made into movies or, the West Side Story.
Which ones did you do?
I did Macbeth, Hamlet, Romeo and
Juliet.
Juliet, Merchant of Venice, and Julius Caesar.
Oh, yeah.
And, the book is structured. So if you've never read any of those, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I spend 3 or 4 pages summarizing the juiciest parts of the plot and who's who. And then I just talk about, depending on the play, there were certain lessons that are really helpful for people who want to be leaders because Shakespeare writes about a lot of leaders.
Yeah.
And some do very well, and some end up in a puddle of blood on the stage floor at the end of Act 5. And I don't want any leader to end up metaphorically like that.
In a puddle of blood on the stage. Well, Marie, I could talk to you forever. We could do a part 2 because you know what I'd love to talk about is the crisis we have looming or going on with young men. And as having a teenage son of your own. I think that might be a fun conversation at some point. And just you have, and I know you had to have the whole farewell tour over the spring when you got to hear all these people telling you how great you are. But I mean it. Like I tell you what. So thank you so much, Marie Wiles, with that retirement glow in my head, which I'm eagerly searching for. But thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Thank you for everything you've done for so many children over 36 years of working in the system. I got chills thinking about it. So thank you.
Thank you.